finally, second to the last category for all of this Oscar stuff. We're almost there. This time we have Best Director, and the nominees are Wes Anderson for The Grand Budapest Hotel, Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu for Birdman, Richard Linklater for Boyhood, Bennett Miller for Foxcatcher, and Morton Tildum for The Imitation Game. Now again, this is kind of a weird list for me because objectively speaking, I will say that all five of these nominees are very good. It's just that I think there are two snubs that I can think of right now that I really thought should have been nominated instead. For one, Ava DuVernay, who directed Selma, I thought did fantastic work on that movie, and I think she deserved to be recognized more. As well as Damien Chazelle from Whiplash. I mean, Whiplash is pretty much all him, so I don't understand what went on there. But alas, this is our list. So in terms of who I think should have won the Oscar, at fifth place, I'm going to put Morton Tildum. And Morton Tildum pulls off the difficult task of creating tension despite the lack of on-screen action. One of the director's jobs really is to translate a script to screen. And if you read the script of The Imitation Game, it doesn't necessarily come off as urgent, right off the bat. But it's Martin Tildum's responsibility, and what he does well is translating that script into something that feels very urgent despite no shots being fired. But his most impressive feat really with The Imitation Game is that he makes the film work on a deeper level than just the thriller aspects. And he really is able to make things intimate and about Alan Turing, but still make it seem important despite, the global war that's happening around him. But the only reason why I put Martin Tildum at fifth place here is that arguably The Imitation Game is the most conventionally directed one among all these nominees, which is not a bad thing. I always say that formula filmmaking can be very good. It's just that ultimately he plays it very safe. Now, at fourth place, I'm going to put Bennett Miller. And what Bennett Miller does so well in Foxcatcher is that he creates such a depressing tone. It's like a cloud hanging overhead that, it doesn't really beat us down into submission that we can't watch it anymore, but he controls this cloud of depression so well that we end up as an audience reacting to everything in the movie just how Bennett Miller wants us to react to them. And he's really unafraid of putting us right there in the middle of really embarrassing or shocking situations. And even if his direction is very kind of depressing, the direction he has here is very real. It's not detached at all. He doesn't glorify things, but he really lets us feel things as how they are. And it really shows that Bennett Miller is capable of both mainstream directing, like what we saw from him in Moneyball, and more like artsy, meditative stuff like what he does in Foxcatcher. Now, third place, I'm going to put Wes Anderson. And Wes Anderson's films have always been like unlike anything you'll ever see from anybody else. He really has a stamp on everything, and that's because he does so well what, for me is another role of a director to really kind of master all the elements and the filmmaking tools you have at your disposal. And he just knows so well how to take every single element like music, cinematography, production design, and just aim them at his vision of what he wants his movies to be. And he has such singular visions for each of his films. And he's really achieved such a great balance between comedy and drama that he doesn't actually need to switch from one to the other. Like less capable directors will struggle to even make the jump from drama to comedy in a believable way. But the way Wes Anderson directs is that it's so clean that his movies always come off as comedy dramas seamlessly without having to switch between the two. And the mark of a Wes Anderson movie really is like his obsessive compulsive attention to detail, which for other people might seem like style over substance, but for me, really, his attention to detail always serves to deepen the characters or the world they live in, and Wes Anderson movies, like, they never ever waste shots at all. At second place, I'm going to put Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. And what he does in Birdman is incredible. Just the task of making a movie seem like it was filmed in just one take takes incredible precision. We're talking, reshooting like minute-long shots and whatnot. But what's so impressive is that he doesn't, let this gimmick just turn into a gimmick. Like he really manages to use this quote-unquote gimmick to really develop the story further and the tone and whatnot. But he manages to elevate it as well in that he could have easily chosen to go the easy route than, just had it be one take but not that much stuff happens in the movie. But there's so many things happening in Birdman, thematically and visually, and he really manages also to be both aggressive and funny, but contemplative and melancholic in other parts of the movie, and he manages to switch moods like really really well. He balances all these elements not by like really controlling them, but by letting them loose and really letting the chaos become the movie, which is so great, I think. He always makes the oddball choices in Birdman, but he's so committed to the strangeness of it all that we end up just, following everything and just believing everything he says. And at first place, I'm going to put Richard Linklater. And his direction in Boyhood is much less in your face than some of the other directors on this list. But what he does for me is just so bafflingly like amazing that he manages to translate real life to the screen without embellishment, and he does it so well in such a believable way. He really makes everything just feel like you know it is what it is. Like the best way I can describe this is that there are a couple of moments in Boyhood when politics and religion are referenced, but they never seem to point to an agenda. It never feels like Linklater's trying to point to an agenda. And he manages to do the impossible in that he does strip away our preconceived notions about certain institutional things like politics and religion, and just present them as they are. He takes the simplest moments of life and presents them as they are and manages to allow them to speak to us on a personal level. Like I have nothing in common with Mason, but I related to him so well. In terms of who I think was going to win the Oscar, I went with Richard Linklater because I also thought Boyhood was going to win, but Iñárritu took it, but I'm okay with that. Alright, so those are my thoughts on the Best Director category for the Oscars. What do you think about Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu winning? Who do you think should have won? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.